Highlights of the action-packed Polokwane Motor Rally is proudly presented by Motorsport South Africa and its partners Toyota, Volkswagen, Ford, Sasol and Dunlop. The finishing line is finally in sight. After the adventure so far in which teams travelled across the country from KwaZulu-Natal to the Western Cape, with Gauteng, the Eastern Cape and Mpumalanga in between, the battle for rallying supremacy now reaches the final stretch. This is the Polokwane Motor Rally. As the name suggests, the event will be hosted in and around the Limpopo province capital, with a number of tricky bushveld-type stages north and south of the city, together with regular visits to the impressive Peter Mokaba Soccer Stadium. The event enjoys full support from the Polokwane City Fathers, but it's also the penultimate round in the 2014 South African Rally Championship, which means that opportunities to affect the championship points table are running out. And this is how the country's best drivers stack up after 6 of the events that make up the 2014 title fight. Leroy Polter has a commanding lead, courtesy of 3 victories so far, ahead of his Toyota teammate Hargen Fecken. Defending champion Mark Cronje is third, ahead of the 2 Volkswagens of Hans Weiss and Henk Latergan. With a 34-point lead at the top of the points table, Leroy Polter can walk away with the title here in Polokwane.
Well, I mean, obviously rallying is a different game. As we've seen this year, the guys have had a lot of punctures and things do go wrong, but you know, it's an healthy lead and I think I must just hang on to it.
And with Toyota teammate Hargen Fecken currently occupying second, it's a vintage year for Toyota.
Yeah, look, the year's gone well. Obviously being second, we have to try and maintain that, and we're going to push as hard as we can just to stay ahead of the other guys.
And with a 36-point difference and a maximum of 50 still up for grabs, champion Mark Cronje still has a chance of defending his title, albeit a mathematical one.
Yeah, look, I think it is a bit slim, but we're definitely not going to give it to them. So I think from our side, we'll push right to the end and hopefully we have a bit of luck this time.
And a bit of early drama for Volkswagen's Hans Weiss before the start of the event.
We were looking forward for this rally, but we have a lot of problems. My co-driver's dad is sick, so we flew him home one day when we arrived here. So we didn't do anything about recce and things like this.
His teammate Henk Latergan will have every intention to reach the end.
We had a bit of bad luck throughout the year. So our instructions for this rally are just to get to the finish.
And in an unbelievable twist of fate, the normally fierce rivalry between arch-enemies Toyota and Volkswagen just turned friendly when former champion navigator Pierre Aris donned his Volkswagen racing suit to climb into the Imperial Toyota of Janelle de Villiers.
A little bit unfortunate for us. Greg fell ill and he's not able to compete. So luckily Pierre Aris was able to stand in.
Yeah, look, this all happened in the last hour, so I'm still trying to come to terms with the whole development. But yeah, I'm very grateful to Volkswagen and Sasol Racing.
Also keep an eye out for Jabi van Niekerk in his Ford and the Namibian contingent of Wilro Dippenaar and Thilo Himmel. Rally headquarters were at the Peter Mokaba Stadium, but the ceremonial start was at the City of Polokwane Council Chambers. The trip between the 2 venues turned out to be a spectacle of note, with the loud engine notes of rally cars combining with the sirens of heavy police escort, much to the delight of the thousands of fans who turned up to witness the show. Gugu Zulu was waved off first by the mayor of Polokwane, followed by Hargen Fecken and Henk Latergan. The Fords of Jabi van Niekerk and Mark Cronje were next to head off, ahead of Leroy Polter, Hans Weiss and Janelle de Villiers. It was time to get dirty on the dry and dusty roads at the Polokwane Brickyard for Stage 1, a rough 10-kilometre test of driving skill.
Gugu Zulu and Carl Peskin launched their Volkswagen Sassel Racing Polo into Stage 1. And exactly 2 minutes later, it's Hergen Vekken who drops the clutch inside his Castrol Toyota Yaris. The second Volkswagen Sassel Racing Polo of Henk Lategan and Barry White powers off into the unknown. And up ahead, Gugu Zulu flies across the flying finish to stop the clock on 7 minutes and 59 seconds. So Hergen Vekken had a benchmark time to beat, and that's exactly what he did, 7 minutes and 53 seconds. And soon after, Volkswagen's young gun Henk Lategan stops the clock on 7 minutes and 49 seconds, the fastest time so far. The first of the Ford Fiestas, the new Africa Developments version of Japie van Niekerk and Gerard Sneeman, who set the second fastest time so far, but only until defending champions Mark Cronje and Robin Houghton crossed the flying finish in a blistering time of 7 minutes and 41 seconds. Cronje's arch rivals Leroy Poulter and Alvin Coetzee in the Castrol Toyota Yaris opened their account with a time of 7 minutes and 44 seconds, 3 seconds slower than Ford. And a time of 7 minutes and 52 seconds was a good start for Hans Weiss, who had to get used to the voice of Hans van Goor reading him the notes inside the Volkswagen Sassel Racing Polo. And a similar problem for Janelle de Villiers, who for the first time ever had Pierre Arries in the co-driver's seat of the Imperial Toyota Yaris.
It's not easy for Pierre to read off Greg's notes. I went off the road one place. Really lucky to keep it on the wheels.
Off to stages 2 and 3 on the Dupree and Sneeman farms south of Polokwane. Together these two stages will cover 28 kilometres, but the roads are narrow and rough, leaving little or no room for error.
It's Gugu Zulu's turn to open the road here in Polokwane, something which the popular Volkswagen Sassel racing driver will have to do all day long. And it's tough to be the so-called road sweeper, as the surface is normally very slippery and there are no lines to follow, but Zulu does well to survive both stages 2 and 3.
But very different to leading the race and starting it off, very slippery.
Second on the road is not that much better, but Castrol Toyota's Hergen Vekken is a former double champion, and together with Karen Swan in the hot seat, Vekken put the hammer down to shatter Zulu's benchmark times on both these two stages to move into the provisional lead. Behind Vekken, it's the turn of the second Volkswagen Sassel Racing Polo in the hands of Henk Lategan and Barry White. This is the youngster in full flight on a very fast section on stage 2. But the Polo grinds to an agonizing halt, turning the young man into a spectator for the rest of the day.
The car was going really well until we got to one of the back straights, and just after a jump the engine blew and we had to pull over and stop, and that's the end of our rally.
So one less rival to worry about for the new Africa Developments Ford pairing of Japie van Niekerk and Gerard Sneeman, who set the second fastest time of all on stage 2. But on stage 3, he too was forced to retire after the rocky nature of the roads got the better of his Fiesta. The Polokwane Rally Guards must have had something against the Ford Fiestas. Defending champions Mark Cronje and Robin Houghton did not even reach the end of stage 2 after their number 24 Ford Fiesta clipped a gatepost, bringing an end to Cronje's aspirations of adding a third consecutive title to his tally and forcing the entire Ford team to pack up shop and head home. With 3 of the top contenders gone in a matter of minutes, there must have been smiles on the faces of Leroy Poulter and Alvin Coetzee, who went on to win both these tricky stages and to take a commanding 23-second lead right at the top of the leaderboard. The high rate of attrition so early on also meant that Hans Weiss and his new co-driver Hans van Goor could climb the leaderboard, despite the fact that they were still struggling to get used to each other inside the Volkswagen Sassel Racing Polo. Weiss completed stages 2 and 3 in 5th position. The caliber of both driver and co-driver inside the Imperial Toyota Yaris quickly started to show as Janelle de Villiers and Pierre Aries found their feet. De Villiers set the 4th and 3rd fastest times respectively on these two stages to move into 3rd position overall. De Villiers was only just ahead of the surprise of the day so far, the older generation PZN and North City panel beaters Toyota Auris of Wilro Dippenaar and Kes Naidu, who came within 2 seconds of winning stage 3.
So this is how they stacked up after 3 grueling stages that already claimed a number of victims. Leroy Polter tops the leaderboard with a 23-second advantage over his teammate Hergen Fekken. Janelle de Villiers is 3rd, but he has a young Namibian in the form of Wilro Dippenaar breathing down his neck, who in turn leads the Volkswagen of Hans Weiss in 5th. And finally, a chance to attend the abused machinery in the Dunlop Service Park, while drivers get the opportunity to reflect on the opening loop of stages. A perfect start for championship leader Leroy Polter.
Yeah, for sure. I mean, and lucky to the other guys, it's really rough out there. I think it's a bit of a lottery at the moment with the big rocks around.
And an even better start for Toyota with Hergen Fekken currently in 2nd.
It is rough out there, and the cars are holding, the 2 Toyotas, or the 3 Toyotas actually, are holding out very well.
But what about the Volkswagen and Toyota combination of Pierre Aries and Janelle de Villiers?
It's not easy, he's got to read Greg's notes and, it's difficult for him to understand what he means.
After the short service break, it's back to stages 4 and 5. It's exactly the same 2 stages that caused so much havoc just an hour ago when it claimed the names of Van Niekerk, Lateghan and defending champion Cronje.
Namibian driver Thilo Hemmel with co-driver Armand de Tooy were driving hard as always and with a chance of scoring a good result with their older Volkswagen Polo. But the same gatepost that claimed Cronje also brought an end to their rally. Things were definitely getting better inside the cockpit of the Volkswagen Sassel Racing Polo of Hans Weiss. The Dutchman obviously needed some time to get used to the voice of new navigator Hans van Goor, and when this happened, the Dutch pairing upped their pace to climb up into 5th position overall. And the Toywagen combination of Janelle de Villiers and Pierre Aries were pretty much in the same boat. De Villiers, however, has found a new spurt of speed as of late, following his victory on the round before. But the Imperial Toyota Yaris called it quits just before the start of stage 5, forcing de Villiers and Aries to become spectators for the rest of the day.
It's some electronic problem, but we don't know what it is. We tried to find the problem, but everything's going haywire inside the car.
Their demise allowed the clean run so far of Gugu Zulu and Carl Peskin to be rewarded with a fine 4th position on the overall leaderboard as their Volkswagen Sassel Racing Polo survived these tough 2 stages. And what a drive from young Namibian Wilro Dippenaar and co-driver Kes Naidu. The PZN and North City panel beaters Toyota Auris grabbed the opportunity with both hands to move into a fantastic 3rd position overall. It was still early days, but looking good for Castrol Toyota with Hergen Fekken and Callan Swan in a comfortable 2nd position. Even from 2nd on the road, Fekken was fast and kept his nose clean and even managed to win the tricky stage 5 to make 2nd position all his own. But the position that was most important for Toyota was the one occupied by Leroy Polter and Alvin Coetzee. Polter had a mathematical chance of clinching the overall rally championship right here in Polokwane with 1 round to spare, and with his rival Mark O'Neill ready retired from the event and Polter in firm control of the rally, it was looking very promising indeed.
After the break, day 1 action of the Polokwane Motor Rally draws to a close before an early start for day 2. A day that could see the crowning of a new champion, or will Lady Luck have other ideas? It's still day one of the Polokwane Motor Rally, and just 5 stages and 70 kilometres of rough gravel roads have already claimed a number of victims. And still, there was no rest for the wicked, as one more stage remained before the crews could get a well-earned break. Stage 6 was a short blast on tar and pavements around the Peter Makaba Soccer Stadium.
It's the type of stage that doesn't normally allow one to make up time, but a small mistake such as hitting one of the many pavements will be severely punished and can lead to tears and even retirement. But no such problems for the remaining gravel road warriors who survived the tarmac to reach the end of a very tough day one of the Polokwane Motor Rally. And it's Leroy Polter who wins the stage from his teammate Hergen Vecken, extending his overall lead by another 2 seconds.
And this is the final day of the penultimate round of the entire 2014 South African Rally Championship. It's also a day that could see the crowning of a new champion. But first, the remaining crews will have to survive 5 more grueling stages and more than 100 kilometres of flat-out racing. And these are the current standings. Leroy Polter goes into the final day with a half-a-minute lead over his Toyota teammate Hergen Vecken. A 30-second time penalty for starting a stage late on the previous day drops Wilro Dippenaar down into 5th, with the Volkswagens of Gugu Zulu and Hans Weiss moving up into 3rd and 4th respectively. The battleground for day 2 moves to the Kruger and Schulenburg farms north of the city. These gravel roads are less rough than the ones used on the day before, but also a lot faster, which makes them even more dangerous.
It's the Castrol Toyota Yaris of Leroy Polter and Alvin Kutsia that blasts into stage 7 from first on the road. As these stages are now run for the first time, it means that Polter will have to sweep all day long, but he has a more than comfortable lead and he should play it safe. Behind Polter, it's his teammates Hergen Vecken and Kellen Swan who tackle the 31 kilometers of Kruger next. Vecken made it clear that he has every intention to try and fight for a win here. But he will have to get past Polter first, who reaches the end of stage 7 with a time of 19 minutes and 44 seconds. This is past the halfway mark for Vecken. But that's a big moment. The Yaris is slowing down and comes to a stop. All chances of fighting for victory have just been lost. With his teammate removed from the equation, Polter's lead had just grown from a half a minute to more than 2 full minutes. And Volkswagen Sassel Racing's Hans Weiss and fellow Dutchman Hans van Goor started the day in 4th place, but gained a position the moment they blasted past the stranded Toyota of Vecken. Their next target was the sister polo of Gugu Zulu and Carl Peskin, who held a slender advantage of less than a single second. But it's Weiss who beats his teammate Zulu by 8 seconds on stage 7 to move into 2nd position overall. But the fight between these 2 teammates was far from over, as Zulu fought back on stage 8 to close the gap once again. And while these 2 teammates were slogging it out, Namibian Wilro Dippenaar with Kes Naidu reading the notes started his fight back. A 30-second time penalty after day 1 dropped the young man from 3rd down to 5th, but the PZN panel beaters Toyota closed the gap to finish this loop of stages hot on the heels of the 2 Volkswagens ahead of him. And speaking of fighting back, a number of day 1 victims returned for more punishment on day 2 under the so-called Super Rally rules, which allows one to re-enter, but with a 5-minute time penalty for every stage missed the day before. This allowed the Volkswagen Sassel Racing Polo of Henk Watergaan, as well as the Imperial Toyota Yaris of Janelle de Villiers, and the older Polo of Tilo Himmel, to ponder what might have been, with Watergaan setting the fastest time of all on stage 7. And de Villiers in turn doing the same on stage 8.
No change at the very top of the leaderboard, with Leroy Polter still leading the way, but with the name of Hergen Vecken disappearing. The fight for 2nd place between Volkswagen teammates Hans Weiss and Gugu Zulu and Wilro Dippenaar in the mix was becoming the one to watch. Back in the Dunlop Service Park, It was looking good for Volkswagen teammates Gugu Zulu and Hans Weiss, who were both in provisional podium positions.
It's good to be in a good position this time around in Polokwane.
We have to speed up a little bit to keep the people behind us on their place.
Both Weiss and Zulu, however, had a charging Wilro Dippenaar breathing down their necks.
We're cautious on the jumps, but overall we're doing not that bad.
A luckless Herkenfecken finally emerged from the stage where he damaged his Yaris, but his chances were ruined.
I think I missed the note, I didn't hear it. So we went wide, there was a very bad spot, bad jump dip, and damaged the left front suspension.
And with a more than 2-minute lead, Leroy Poulter was in pole position to not only win the rally, but also the championship.
We're happy. I think maybe we take a step back now and we can just get it to the end.
Just 2 more stages stood between glorious victory or perhaps crushing defeat. 55 kilometers of gravel roads that will decide the outcome of the Polokwane Motor Rally and perhaps even the 2014 championship.
The Volkswagen Sassel Racing Polo of Henk Latergan and Barry White returned to the stages on day 2 and showed what could have been, but the young man's luck was short-lived as he was forced to retire once more. And similar heartache for Herkenfecken and Kerlin Swan, who just a few minutes ago were still fighting for victory. But after losing more than 10 minutes, they were also forced to quit following another technical problem with their Toyota Yaris. Young Namibian Thilo Himmel and South African co-driver Armand de Tooy also returned for more action on day 2, but more problems forced them to the sidelines once again. So the high rate of attrition opened the door for South Africa's up-and-coming rally drivers in the Super 1600 class for front-wheel drive rally cars to show their mettle. 10th place overall was probably a career best for the Volkswagen Polo pairing of Andrew Hein and Robbie Coetzee, while youngster Matthew Weisilal and co-driver Skalk van Heerden were rewarded for their efforts inside the Fragrant Tools Toyota Etios with a fine 9th place overall. Ernie van der Walt and James Aldrich reached the end in 8th place behind the wheel of their Ferrodo Ford Fiesta R2. And 7th overall was also good enough for 2nd in the hotly contested Super 1600 class for the Manitou Group Volkswagen Polo of Paul Franken and Henry Kerner, who enjoyed a near-perfect outing here in Polokwane. But the Super 1600 class was all about the dominant performance of Guy Bottrell and Simon Weisilal. The Natalians behind the wheel of their Yato Tools Toyota Etios was the class of the field throughout the season. Another class victory here in Polokwane made it 6 out of 7, enough to clinch the Super 1600 championship in the process. And Janelle de Villiers once again proved why he is one of the world's best drivers when he returned to the action on day 2. With Pierre Arries reading the notes, de Villiers made up some of the time lost due to time penalties incurred on day 1 to finish the rally in a fine 5th place overall. But what about the final battle for the coveted podium positions? There are just 3 steps available, but currently 4 protagonists in the mix. Wilro Dippenaar and Kees Naidoo were on a charge in their efforts to regain the podium spot they occupied on day 1. And with just 2 stages to go, the PZN panel beaters Toyota still had a 10-second gap to an equally determined Gugu Zulu and Carl Peskin in their Volkswagen Sassel Racing Polo. Zulu was on course to record his best result of the season, but so was Dippenaar. And after stage 9, the gap was down to just 3 seconds, still in Zulu's favour. And the 24 kilometers of fast gravel roads on the Oerlemans and Versailles farms will provide the final opportunity for either man to try and have a say. And it's Dippenaar who beats Zulu by 14 seconds to take over 3rd position on the overall leaderboard. With the war raging just behind them, the Dutch pairing of Hans Weiss and Hans van Goor must have had a few nervous moments. But Weiss kept his head down to steer his Volkswagen Sassel Racing Polo clear of trouble and en route to record his best result of the season, despite the drama of changing navigators so close to the start of the event. And with a more than 2-minute lead over the chasing pack and just a few kilometers to go, only a disaster could prevent Leroy Poulter and Alvin Coetzee from winning their 4th event in 2014. Poulter could actually afford to tap off in order not to take any risks. And after winning stage 9 for good measure, that is exactly what the Castrol Toyota driver did on stage 10. But one final challenge remained. Another blast around the Peter Mokaba soccer stadium that will bring an end to the 2014 Polokwane Motor Rally. As with the night before, the final stage consisted of 3 kilometers of sidewalks and pavement-filled obstacles. But the battle was over, as these 3 kilometers were not going to affect the outcome. Wilro Dippenaar crossed the flying finish to record a career-best 3rd place overall, while Hans Weiss's strategy of being patient paid off with a fine 2nd position. And what a moment for Leroy Poulter and Alvin Coetzee. 3 kilometers between not only rally victory, but also championship glory. All the Castrol Toyota pairing had to do was reach the flying finish to be crowned South African Rally champions.
A memorable day for Leroy Poulter, who wins the rally and the championship at the same time. Hans Weiss records a season-best 2nd position, ahead of a career-best 3rd for Wilro Dippenaar. Gugu Zulu settles for 4th, ahead of a strong finish from Janelle de Villiers in 5th. The sweet taste of champagne from the 3rd step of the podium for Wilro Dippenaar.
We had hope, we were motivated and we reached it, so yes, I'm quite happy with it.
And a popular 2nd place finish for Dutch driver Hans Weiss.
I'm quite happy with it. It's good for the team. They worked hard, so thank you for that.
But what a vintage day, rally and season for newly crowned South African Rally champions Leroy Poulter and Alvin Coetzee.
It's amazing. You know, as we said, the 2 days we've been under a lot of pressure, you know, trying to finish the race and not break the car, you know, but got to the end and it's unbelievable. I mean, the team have done a magic job. Alvin's done an excellent job, and I mean, I'm just over the moon. I must be honest, I would like to dedicate this to my dad.
And a reminder to also join us next week for the highlights of the Super 1600 battle that took place on the 2014 Polokwane Motor Rally. The war has been won, but one final battle remains. The 2014 South African Rally Championship has one more stop to make when it presents the Gravel Road Warriors with a new challenge near the town of Bela Bela in Limpopo. See you there on the 21st and 22nd of November. Highlights from the Polokwane Motor Rally, round 7 of the 2014 South African Rally Championship, was presented by Toyota, Volkswagen, Ford, Sasol and Dunlop.